The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Hello and welcome to the 66th episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain, Lisa Mighty Davis, Litecoin Lisa as you might know her around the internet, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend, Greg from Rivet, and I am Distant. I'll be your master of ceremonies today, and I hang out on Den Social a lot, so you can find me over there. A quick update on the WBRT layer ownership tokens distribution from last week's episode. Each host from last week will receive 133 lot. Each topic contributor from last week will receive 55 lot. Last week's theme on implications of blockchain to recorded history, which was a pretty good episode. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. Was nominated by me, and I will receive 55 lot for that. The ownership tokens, the ones I was just talking about, they come with perpetual passive income that you can get in on if you're in on this show. It gives you free edits in the layer where we post all the questions and the topics and things like that, and also governance votes, so we can operate as a DAO and decentralize that governance. We have, speaking of DAOs, we got a DAO update. Here's some of the things you can vote on if you have those lot. The themes for September, the results, we've got blockchain fundamentals, and this should be in order of the weeks. I guess there's 5 weeks in September. So the first one's going to be blockchain fundamentals, and then making the world better with blockchain and decentralized systems, transitioning from number go up to blockchain go up, cloud mining applications, and decentralized YouTube alternatives. That'll be cool. I've started to play a lot more around with Odyssey, for example. The library tech is pretty good. I like it a lot so far, but I've got a lot to learn on that. So maybe by the last week of September, I'll have a lot more to say on that topic. Yep, the theme of this week is not correct on the sheet I'm reading. One moment. It is Web 1 history and limitations for episode 66. So we're going to talk about Web 1.0. And then that's it for the intro, and we'll get on to current events. We do a current events segment every week before we get into the topic. So what kind of current events do we want to talk about today, ladies and gents? What's going on in the world?
Lots of events, man. Many of them are current. Even if they started a long time ago, they're current today.
I think the most exciting thing I saw was that Hinman getting in a little hot water.
I was just reading about where you posted that. I was just reading for this first time this morning about it. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, it looks like there was, I think you were talking about it before we got on, but he was specifically told that he was not to have any contact or meeting with his former law firm. And then I guess looks like he not only had contact with them, but he continued to receive funds from them. And so they've launched Congress has launched an investigation into this. So I think it'll be pretty exciting to see.
That's going to be interesting to follow for sure. And what I was reading that I'm really interested in is there were some specific things that were apparently told to him that he blatantly ignored several times, and went so far, allegedly, went so far as to. So there's something called the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which self-describes as an industry organization whose objective is to drive the use of enterprise Ethereum.
But wait, Ethereum is decentralized.
Well, there's Hyperledger and Hyperledger Fabric and all these other types of forks of Ethereum that take out the consensus layer that we all know of and talk about as proof of work and proof of stake, right? And they replace that with proof of authority, which is another way of saying consortium and or status quo way of running things.
Yeah.
And I want to just read one sentence there that was that jumped out at me on this publication, or whatever you want to call it, the letter.
A better word.
Apparently, he was using the context, using the referral of a business prospect and participation in at least one exclusive conference designed to provide insiders with special access to high-level SEC officials. So that's interesting. This is from the Empower Oversight whistleblower and research nonprofit organization.
So for a little background for those who might not know in the audience, who is
sounds like they have data.
Can somebody summarize him?
So he was a commissioner at the time. He made a speech. I can't remember the date. What surprised me is that he had made over or around $15 million from that law firm, which also represented the Ethereum Alliance and Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and the Ethereum Foundation, I believe, and Consensus. And you think about $15 million for a current commissioner.
Jesus,
there's no way that the ethics on either side would have been met. Even from this, if it's, does the bar care about this? Do the lawyers?
Well, the bar should care about it.
Right.
As a former practicing lawyer, I guarantee this guy should have been disbarred.
Yeah. I mean, it's all. This is no different than a cartel, except that they run with some more, I guess, easier authority.
Right.
But
I mean, abusing attorney-client privilege, for example.
It's more than fishy. You can't say somebody. And by the way, it wouldn't be important if he weren't the very commissioner who made the speech that gave the Ethereum pass, the free pass that essentially said, we're not looking at Ethereum as a security, which affected a lot of things in the world and is very odd, right? So
it affected immediately the number go up.
Yeah.
Now that said, is there a case to be made that even though bullshit was done, that because it was an instance-based pro-freedom maneuver, as in it kept people from investigating something with the authority to investigate it, that's ultimately a good because it kept authoritarians at bay?
No, because if you say this one group is going to be selected and they can have it's crony capitalism. It is literally just saying we're going to select this group to be the winner and everybody else is screwed. We're going to destroy everybody else. And
because it subverts the fairness of the process.
It's ridiculously negative because that's the thing with blockchain. With a market, you need competition. If you think Ethereum is the end all be all, then, we should go, what was the very first freaking website out there? And everything should have to be arranged like an old Yahoo directory under.
That is a great point for today's topic. Right? Yeah, I like that. It's a good point. With Web 1 topic today, that's a really good point. And this is unrelated completely, but it's sort of how I felt about, I've got a lot of opinions. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But about the whole BSV was making this claim about how everybody forked away from the real Bitcoin, right? Everybody else left the real Bitcoin. We're the real Bitcoin. And I'm just like, why would you never change the first version of a piece of a proof of concept? Why would you think that would never evolve? Are you kidding?
Kind of like that's kind of the antithesis of software, right? It's supposed to be iteratively developed.
Yeah.
If nobody wanted it to be forked, they wouldn't have made it open source.
I mean, the only you get something like C language, which gets to a gold standard because they want to maintain these capabilities without affecting future, But what does that do?
That's a process of engineers,
right? But this would be too. But that's the thing. It still progresses that you still get we're going to develop C++, we're going to develop C#, we're going to develop Java, we're going to develop Python,
Swift.
So so anyway, Anyway.
You know, the important thing is this is an open source code base that has a long-standing process of self-governance, and the need to interject governance is really more of a need to interject corruption.
And you know what's
Right.
really
And so-
annoying, Greg, to me, is it really is up to us. And are we going to allow software and engineering to be co-opted by politicians and by regulators and by special interests and by people that are crony capitalists and things like that? We've seen, I need to read up on my history a lot more than I have in my life, but from what I've seen, it never turns out well when engineering solutions get influenced or told-fluenced
Challenger,
by politicians and stuff.
Chernobyl.
You guys remember the Clipper chip?
Yeah.
No. The Clipper chip?
The Clipper chip was one of the very earliest attempts to force a backdoor into encryption. The idea was child protection, right? Like, we're going to make it so there's this chip that hacks in backdoor style. And
Gotcha.
only the
I'm not
only
familiar
the
with it,
authorized
but
parties would have.
I am familiar with those attempts. Yeah.
And apologies to Greg, because this is a lawyer dig, but
hey, I have a big problem with most of the lawyers that are practicing. Honestly.
So there are countless issues. Bureaucrats, lawyers, people who aren't engineers controlling engineers is a major issue. That's why Chernobyl happened. If you watch the sequence of events, it was the bureaucrats wanted one thing, the engineers like, no, you can't. It's like, you must. And the same thing happened with Challenger. The same thing happened was at Columbia that crashed the landing. It was always an engineer being overridden.
That happened on my birthday, by the way. I
was
turning
by the
4
way,
that year.
Even knowing that history, that's sad. But even knowing that history, made everything I did at when I was at Lockheed, when I was at Disney, I followed a prescribed set. If something was totally effed up, I made sure to document it and send it far and wide.
Right.
Because there are two things about it.
And as long as you followed that process, not even a process designed to stop bad things from happening, but a process of covering your ass.
Well, yeah, because it like say the engineer in the Columbia, the landing, they made note, multiple times, tried to, it's like, no, and it got overridden. It's like, oh, it's bad for PR, right? It's like, you get marketing people involved, you get bureaucrats involved, it's hell. And so anytime that happened, and the funny thing is, in doing that, it would make the higher ups wake up, because some things they just kind of ignore normally if you told them. If it was written in an email, all of a sudden they had to fucking do something.
Right, because that would be there for discovery later.
Yeah. And you're talking about
you talk about bureaucrats. It reminds me of the story about Tom Cruise, and some actor asked him, because he does his own stunts. It's like, how did you do that one scene where you were running on the building? It's like, how did you ever talk him into that? And he's like, well, I went to our safety guy, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to run on a cord across a building. And they're like, oh, no, you can never do that. He said, so I got a new safety guy. And then we did it. And I think what bureaucrats and politicians do, like Joe said, they cover their butt because they have.
Here's the thing.
They have the word of an expert, but they just choose the expert to give them the information that they really wanted, and then that's how they proceed.
I'm going to request our limited audience. We have to start this small. And this is some people will think that I am horrible for saying this. There are good people out there who, for the benefits of their current job, are doing evil. And sometimes they know it, but usually they just kind of they compartmentalize it in their mind, and they find a way to go to sleep. They might drink.
I don't know anything about that. That's not my part.
No, but here's the thing.
Right?
Here's the thing. Yeah, exactly. It is that. And these people, in my opinion, state level and especially federal level, should live in shame. They should go with their head down when they drive into their neighborhood, because all their neighbors think that fucker works for that 3-letter agency. And I know that fucker does evil. That fucker probably looked up my shit without me knowing it, because I'm just, I work a normal job, right? And here's the thing: those very people are making $20,000 to 50% higher wages than the people with the same skills in the commercial world that those people are paying for. And they have a guaranteed job forever. So I know everybody out there, you probably have family, you probably have friends, you probably have neighbors who, and I, when I worked at the FBI, nearly every neighbor was in the FBI. At least we had, the
Right.
assistant director of the FBI lived down the street. We had 5 or 6 agents at any given point in time in our neighborhood, right? So it was always a weird thing if there was a break-in. I'm like, jeez. So either a brave or stupid person, right?
Right.
And here's the thing: those people not live in fear or anything, but they should live in shame. It is a ridiculous thing.
How would you feel if you went to a
Yeah.
dinner party with Ed Snowden, right? Would you be embarrassed to talk about your day?
Right.
But Sean was telling me how they're like protected. They can, like, some guy, and I don't know that he was an agent. I can't remember, Sean, or maybe it was some kind of policeman or something. Like he went after like his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend or something and planted something on him, and then got him, and like he got caught, but nothing happened to him because they know they're protected.
Even he admitted to it. It was like on he put the like drugs or something in the guy's car, and then the security camera footage clearly showed him using a Slim Jim, and putting everything in there. He's like, "Yeah, I did it," and they're like, "All right, you're free to go, other guy. We're not. Your charges are dropped." But nothing happened to him at all.
Nothing happened to him.
Any federal agent's protected.
And that's not just
standing army,
by the way.
I'm unfamiliar with, or are you talking literally about the meat snack?
What?
Did you say Slim Jim, Satoshi-san?
Oh, he's talking about.
No, he's talking about
Slim Jim is
that
the thing that
tool.
goes in
Right,
there.
there we go. See, I didn't know that. That's like,
okay.
It's a tool.
It's like it's a
Those are
flask that
delicious.
fits into
Okay.
the
Yeah.
windows,
The
and
window.
you can make it
No, they're missing
pull
the
up
point.
the old
What happened to a
style
Slim Jim? Oh yeah.
golf tees.
sorry, I had to ask because I was like, that's
No, yeah, it's a tool to open and unlock
I
a
think
door.
they can go in the side of the door too, right? I've never
Like all
done
police
that.
officers, I think they still have one in their car now, but also car thieves do.
So they can
I
break
don't
it
know.
up.
I just
car thief.
back to the
They
point that
usually
they
have
know
the
they're
Slim Jim and they hide it
protected.
in their hat. They put it inside the brim because it's just a thin piece of metal.
If I ever keep a Slim Jim in my hat, it'll be the mild kind.
Well,
Anyway.
looking around your car, knock
No,
your hat off.
But that's
Focus.
that's the problem. People, and it's pride in work is good, especially if you're doing good, right? And there are a lot of rank and file. There are a lot of people who have no power to do that, but the problem is they still work there. They still support them. Their boss's boss that does whatever they do. There were countless cases of graft and everything else when I was at the FBI. And I would report what I'd report that was obvious, and other stuff it was like I have no idea, but I can tell you what they're doing is wrong. We had people.
It's really weird.
They tried to get me. I accidentally. I had an engineering. I had to ask a question of this different group to find out what they needed because we're the architect group, and it turned out that I accidentally uncovered that one of the guys that was opposed to us was double billing in that other group. Double billing the fucking FBI, and they tried to write me up for asking these engineering questions. And my boss's boss's boss, took care of it. And
So they were trying to write you up for doing your job.
Yeah. Because they were double billing, they were freaking. And
that actually had something similar to that happened to me one time. And I wanted to say, like, a lot of this stuff people understandably dismiss as like, oh yeah, it's a big organization, it's a big machine. There's some bad apples in there, and there's some weird things that happen sometimes. And yeah, it's just, but no, it's pervasive. I haven't been there in a while, I'll admit, but it was pretty freaking pervasive when I was there. That, for example, one time, you're on deployment, you're floating around in the ocean for 7 months, no land, you get bored, and you have access to systems. So what do? You read stuff, right? And, people like Snowden and people like Manning did something that I never had the balls to do, which was try to say something about it. Maybe the motives weren't always in line with what you may agree with, but like there's shit that goes on. And like one time whenever I was snooping around on Cybernet or whatever it was that I was on watch on that day, I was noticing that there was a lot of stuff that was just like unsecure and accessible to anybody who happened to have access to that network. And so I went to the department head of IT in the command I was in, and I was like, hey, actually I went through a friend of mine who worked in the radio room and was like, hey, you got some unsecure shit and it's wide open. You might want to do something about that. And I sent some examples. One of them was a spreadsheet with administrator passwords in it for all kinds of stuff, And I was like, hey, kind of a problem. You know what I mean? And it was bizarre. The pushback that I got from that was from his boss was like, oh, we got somebody who thinks he's a hacker, huh? And he's going to try to show us how we should be doing our job and yada, yada. And I'm like, bro, come on. Or broette in this case. But right. Like it's bizarre. This is why I take a lot of conspiracy theories with a grain of salt, because I don't think that they're organized or competent enough to pull off a lot of the shit that I hear people accusing them of. But my point is, it's kind of a clusterfuck, and it's worrisome.
Can we add one more thing to it? And that is the fact, evidence, proof of corruption, that the two agents, and I think it was both of them, but at least one of them, that had investigated Ross Ulbricht, Silk Road, Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR.
Oh, those guys ran off with a lot of crypto, didn't they?
They literally blackmailed him to get crypto, and it was uncovered, and the case went on. And I'm like, how in God's name can you have the very people putting that investigation together, among other things, with the way that it was reverse engineered?
Sounds kind of like a flagrant poisonous tree situation, doesn't it?
You can have it because people allow it, not because people allow it. People won't do.
Yet,
what a lot of people, I think
people are still in Minecraft, and people are doing things in Minecraft. You all know that
I don't think anything's going to really change.
I don't know.
You've gotten to that point where it's going to take.
Everybody right now, I think, is praying for some subterranean civilization to come and take us over.
For someone else to do something. In general, praying for someone else.
They're trying.
They're
trying. The lizard people are at it in droves, man. Like you got Joshua Schulte, right? The guy who was recently put away for telling everybody about the murder drones.
I don't even know about that.
You've got Joshua Schulte. He was just convicted over the summer under the ridiculous Espionage Act.
Wow.
We've got Ed Snowden, and he's still under indictment. They will never let him off of that, absent some kind of intentional push. We've got Julian Assange, right? Like he's never even been to the United States. He's an Australian citizen, and we're importing him to this country so that we can try him as if he's committed espionage against our government. How can you even?
We've gotten to the point where everyone will admit, like it's not a crazy conspiracy. Everyone admits that things are as horrible as they could get. I said this before. Every time somebody posted an Epstein didn't kill himself meme, it wasn't just a meme or a joke. It was literally all these average citizens saying, I know there is someone pulling the strings from behind, the scene. I know our government's a facade. I know that there is some kind of a deep state or secondary government that can do what they will, that can go in and kill someone that's in protective custody. Like I understand, and I'm putting it out there that I know all this. That was literally what everyone said. Yep. But me and Lisa have talked about this. I think it'll be I don't want to say stupid or insignificant, but a smaller than Assange, smaller than Ross, like not that big of a deal, and it'll just make everyone snap. It like a tax on tea. That's it. We're done.
On the camel's back.
How many people were killed by cops? How many people were wrongfully killed by cops? Right. Bad cops.
Well,
this
whole
Virgil
and then all of a sudden, this guy who's a convicted druggie, not a great person.
I don't think people care about any of that. They care about their wallet. But no one cared about
this one guy
putting a face diaper on or.
Killed, the world
Any of
changed.
that.
Not
The
just
life
the United
jacket
States.
thing
The United
is really
States
crazy.
burned, and then other countries burned. There's people in foreign countries who don't speak English, who were out, protesting. Get off my neck. I mean that, and it was something that happens all the time, and then all of a sudden that one thing that did it. I think we're gonna have that again with everything. With all
Right
this
now,
wrongdoing.
people are
There'll be
flipping out
one
about
thing
the college
that's going to
loans being
coalesce
forgiven.
everyone and make everyone snap.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
the,
too many distractions. The college loan thing's a distraction. I mean, do you guys remember? I was looking on a particular site a few days ago, and I saw an old green text from 4chan about a series of events in Las Vegas in 2017. It happened a week before the Dragon Chain token sale. Right, I remember it's like, holy crap, driving.
You're talking about the Vegas sniper. You're talking about the Vegas sniper, right?
Sniper thing.
Pretty much
Yeah.
went nowhere. And if you look at what actually happened and what at least is known, it's freaking ridiculous that isn't something alone that would have caused people to say, "Hey, stop it, stop everything." Right.
Well, I mean, the San Bernardino shooter, right? Like that was mostly an excuse to get the FBI to try to force Apple to develop a broken version of iOS and release it to everybody.
Yeah.
Greg said something about protecting children, and now you brought up the Vegas shooter in Vegas. You guys just always hit my nerves, man. I don't know if y'all heard about Schwab and the World Economic Forum talking about the reasons we need to microchip kids.
You will eat the bugs.
Audition.
And they want
Who's going to eat the bugs? Can I ask?
I'm not going to
microchip kids now.
I'll eat some bugs.
Which that long-term thinking, which they took over all universities. So by starting to microchip kids, in a generation, everyone literally will be microchipped. And in the Vegas shooting, what that has led to is that there's tons of money there, and these hotels have. And this is a. I just started scratching the surface of this this week. The hotels have hired their own SWAT teams. They're called immediate response, whatever. But in Vegas, these huge hotels have they have their own security force, but then they have their own SWAT teams now. But the thing is, and this is a big for Greg, you will like this.
I don't know if I'll like it.
You won't, but you'll find this interesting. So police, you can't sue them. They have what's it called?
It's called qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity, right? So qualified immunity, but there's these and it's in Vegas. These private security forces have been given authority in a lot of ways, and the police have said, okay, you can handle this, and they work in tandem. So a hotel was sued and they lost, and all the criminal charges were dropped because they violated the Fourth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to you normally can't violate someone's rights if you don't work for the government. So but these cases now, these hotels, because they've partnered with the police and the police have given them some authority, which they really aren't supposed to do, but now they are they're liable, and there's now legal precedent because of that.
Right. Well, I mean, and with all the gun control laws now being made with loopholes and exceptions for private security forces, one can make a case that coming soon, every single private security force is in fact a government operative.
Or tax collector, or whatever else is decided. And this is something, I want to illustrate something real quick, that this isn't all like Big Brother stuff. The people that work for the Big Brother stuff see what's going on too, and they feel like, oh, it's okay for them to do what their boss is doing, right? And it really does affect the everyday working person. Quick example, my friend, I remember he ran out of gas one time on his way home from a 3-day music festival that he had. It was his festival that he put on, Spirit Fest. It was great. Okay. And 3-day music festival, big success. Everybody had a blast. And after all the accounting at the end of the weekend, he was heading to his bank, or he's heading home or something. I think he was heading to his bank. but he had a bunch of cash with him, right? Because he had just done all of this hard work to put on this big thing and made some okay money. And so he called me. He ran out of gas because his van, the gas meter didn't work, and he just never got around to fixing it. And he was just tired. He was heading home. It's fine, I'll get there.
Tend to be, right?
So he runs. Yeah, exactly. So he runs out of gas and he's pulled over on the median. He calls me for help. And he's like, dude, I need you to get here as soon as you fucking can. I'm freaking out. I've got cash with me. I'm not afraid of getting robbed. I'm afraid of the police because they will take it from me. And they will say, and then later on, they'll take my $40,000 and then they'll say, here's your $35,000 back. Sorry about that. Or they won't. And he's like, it's happened before.
Or they'll take the whole 40 grand.
Right. Yeah. Or you'll get it 15 years later, not with
and I'm not saying that the police are going to be shady and do something they're not allowed to do and take it. I'm saying they're going to be allowed to do it because civil forfeiture is a thing. And so, like, a lot of this stuff does.
And they need a new cop car. They need a shiny new cop car.
Your last comment there, Dave, they can do something shady and be legal.
Right.
So it is, and I think we're at this weird stage.
It's just wrong,
especially with me and Lisa. I can't really speak to you guys, but me and Lisa, and I've watched her start to change. I've changed. I'm a couple, maybe a few months or a couple years ahead of Lisa, but we're very patriotic. We really love the United States,
right?
And our way of thinking is this good old.
Too, dude.
I watched Top Gun. And it just made you like, oh man, remember when the government was good and you believed in it? The new Top Gun. But like Lisa,
I don't love the government. I love the Constitution. I love America. I love the
used to go very hand in hand. And we're at the point now where like loving America, and it's like loving the America of the past. Wow. The idea of what it was.
Federalism has failed.
It's weird. Where now the government says if you talk about the Constitution or the Second Amendment or whatever, you're on a list as a domestic.
Right, the Gadsden flag is in and of itself a symbol of terror, right? Or the ANCAP flag of all things.
Yeah.
People who are literally like, you can't do anything lawful that is an exercise of force. These people are considered terrorists.
That blew me away. The flag we flew on the forecastle when I was active duty in the Navy is now considered to be like, oh, that puts you on a list.
So
that
Betsy Ross
like,
flag?
What the actual? Come on,
Right? They swear the president in under Betsy Ross flag.
I tell you, I'm going to predict this that at some point, people flying a U.S. flag in their house will be on the freaking list.
Oh yeah,
my neighbor
already enough to spot you as
there's so many, and it's usually blows up. The city goes in there, hey, you can't fly that flag. They go to the news, or and then it explodes, and the city council's like, oh well, that person's going to be fired, and that's wrong. But it was they knew that rule was in place,
right?
So
the only reason that they said that's wrong, they were going to fire him, is because somebody decided to make a stink out of it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I do think that a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do, because all this time it was always, well, you need to get in there and be part of the system and fix it. But I think it's becoming abundantly clear that is not possible.
Right.
If you ever listen to what Tulsi Gabbard said, she really hits that nail on the head. It's like when you make it, if you really do want to change things, and when you get to that national level, they're like, no, sit down. No, that's not how it works.
She's part of one of the WEF, like.
She is in the
babies.
WBF. You're right.
Yeah, that's very confusing to me, because when you listen what comes out of her mouth, opposition. It's one thing.
It's all controlled, but
yeah, it's very confusing.
I wanted to say something really terrible.
If you made it to that level, you've already gone through some level of
filter. So I would say
there's no way to get to that level without going through. So.
That and compartmentalized information exists. There are compartmentalized programs within. Every member of an organization isn't necessarily like in on everything the organization is doing.
No, but that's the whole thing.
Well, and even to a certain degree, right? Like Donald Trump, he was an outsider, but he was also an outsider with sufficient, sufficient desire to keep things the way they were, that they didn't shut him down before he started, right?
Mhm.
Like it wasn't enough to assassinate him. It wasn't a JFK moment.
They tried.
Right?
There's
Yeah.
multiple attempts.
Oh yeah,
Just from what
no
I've
doubt.
heard.
But and yet everything that he did was reversible. He didn't do anything that they couldn't turn back the clock on. And he could have. He could have pardoned every single dissident.
Yeah, why did he pardon the rappers and not Assange? That's, I think, the burning question.
yeah.
He's not controlled.
I think he was trying to play nice. I said it at the time.
Bad move.
He was trying.
But
the writing on the wall, how things were going to go with the election.
Like you're trying.
He was trying to not piss off the intelligence community. He was trying to like, hey, deep state, I can play a little ball. Okay, I'm not going to do anything with Assange. I'm not going to do anything for Ross. I got my law enforcement base. I don't want to mess that up with, freeing the mega drug dealer Ross. So he tried to play with the Cobra, and he got bit.
I think that's a good narrative, but it doesn't add up.
Yeah, I can't
when you're talking about freaking Trump.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I don't know that he didn't, because, and I'm full bore on conspiracy theory, so I don't know that he didn't pardon them or free them, and we just don't know about it yet. And because I'm telling you, I can show you 10 pictures of Joe Biden, or 10 different Joe Bidens.
Yes, different Joe Bidens.
And I've never seen him sitting in the White House. Now there's fences around the White House.
So he doesn't wander off.
The Treasury, the Fed. I was told that there's now fences around the FBI building.
There are a lot of fences up on public buildings, aren't there? That's interesting.
Probably to keep Joe Biden from
Very
flying
strange.
New ones. They're not even like
from
the White House
people.
At least had wrought iron. It looks architecturally nice. It's like, okay, it's security. It looks nice. You can see through it. But what they put up over to Congress with the freaking razor wire and stuff. It's like, what?
That's one of the most depressing things over the past year or few, to look at, like, third world countries, totalitarian dictatorships, and then to see our own government buildings looking the same way, protecting the people inside from their own people. Yeah. That is so horribly depressing. I want to say something really terrible, though, about what Joe said, because I 100% agree with you that I think we've gotten to the point where people working for those agencies or government departments should be completely ashamed. Now we're getting to the point where it's not, hey, you're just getting a paycheck. It's collaboration, where, in the near future, if things go a certain way, it will have been collaboration in terrible things that violate the Constitution that are illegal.
And we're just talking history.
But hold on, let me ask you this question.
Yeah, okay.
Let's say that Hitler won. There are millions of science fiction movies. Hitler won, and now it's us. We're here now. So terrible things have happened. There's not certain, ethnic communities. They're not really races, because we're all the same race. But life is great, man. The world is clean, and science is even further ahead than we would be now, at terrible costs. But all the costs are paid. So now we have nothing but generations of just benefits. Life is great, and we know what happened. So we have the guilt of what happened, but we have this great society. How would we look at our forefathers? Would we be like, man, they made this terrible sacrifice?
I don't think totalitarianism can yield a stable society.
Well, I'm talking about the peons. So I'm talking about, like, the people that we're talking about now.
Two things. I have two answers for you.
Would we look at that as, man, my great grandfather really sacrificed his morals and all that just so I could have a good life?
It's debilitating. I will tell you, there are two things. The first is that, instead of saying they won, the premise should be, what if the war would have never happened? It would have been a competition. If they were totalitarian, then we would assume they would have shrunk back in time. If
they would have collapsed.
If there would not have been a war, they would all compete on their own. Now, you could go and historically, the reason that World War II happened is because it was still World War I, that the Allies really, really turned the screws on to Germany in World War I, and there was no way for them to get out. That's what you get. It's like you have to have a balanced free society, and not what they did. But I believe the second important piece is that it's the same thing we think of. We just drove down through half the country, and we actually stopped by the Battle of Wounded Knee site, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's exactly the same situation where you'd have it where it's like, oh, some of our ancestors did some really horrific things, right? And right. I think you can point at the people who did that and say that guy really wasn't a great historical figure, but here's what we know, right? It should just be all transparent, but it'd be the exact same thing.
But totalism is different, right? Like you can have atrocity, right? You can have terrible atrocity, and it's not in the service of creating a totalist society, right? And then you can have totalism, which requires an enemy. It requires a group enemy. Otherwise, the whole thing evaporates into just generalized chaos. And that's what would have happened if Hitler had been left to his own devices. That's what his state would have ended in. They would have run out of enemies, or they would have tried to make an enemy out of everyday people, and it would have caused the whole system to collapse. That is the history of totalism. That's the logical conclusion of that kind of authoritarian rule. I think it's a neat hypothetical, but it's one that has to end, in my mind, with the collapse of that system before we ever get to ask the question.
The couple of things I wanted to talk about today are about current events. One was what Czar talked about in the comments: student debt forgiveness, and once again, for the millionth time this year, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. And also the quote that Ben Franklin, pretty sure it's Ben Franklin, said, if people learn or know that they can vote themselves money, it'll be the end of the republic.
We didn't look it up. That was Robespierre. Franklin, when he left the wherever they signed it, the lady asked him, and what'd you give us, Mr. Franklin? It's like a republic if you can keep it. That I know is him. I think the other was Robespierre.
I don't think he did.
About the debt forgiveness, and it was literally within hours. I saw 3 different amounts.
Before we move on, guys.
Down. Because we all talked about they won't do it because that's a huge chunk of the government's income is student debt. So they're not going to do it, and they're going to, but they will. But it's going to be like 5,000 or 10,000.
There's different organizations.
I've seen articles that were $30,000, then 20.
There's different groups forgiving the debt, though. There's
I think that the president actually said 10.
It's not just the president.
But I think it'll be around 10 or drop down to 5. But that's literally trying to buy votes. Secondly, what I thought was very interesting is the coverage, especially about Trump and the and what's going on with the Mar-a-Lago thing. That even CNN, CNBC are actually they're by no means being like fair and balanced. But they're not being completely one-sided about it. They're like, hey, they're having the other side on and talking to them. And then, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram all shut down U.S. propaganda.
I did see that, yeah.
The real danger right now to our republic is happening in the background. We have Tornado Cash on a list meant to block foreign nationals. It's a software tool. The real war is the crypto wars. That is the battle for our freedom. I mean, this guy by the name of, and nobody probably knows him, Alex Pertsev, was arrested in Amsterdam for contributing code to an open source code base. And this open source code base, it powers a software that is on a blacklist that is supposed to blacklist people. This code has no way to challenge its listing on the list, and nobody else has standing to challenge it. Right now, the result of it is every American is lawfully barred from interacting with an open source software tool. This is a direct violation of free speech, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, and it's definitely the front lines, right? because I think these things that we do affect all of those other political things that might be mainstream media.
This is the same thing with PGP. This is the same thing with it's just a continuation. And the real war is, are we going to be allowed to speak in secret without the government spying on us? And I think the answer is right now, no, unless we do something about it.
Yeah.
I thought this was a kind of a big deal that they admitted that this was going on, and that now big tech is it's moving towards a more fair and balanced kind of thing. They shut down this influence campaign that was, and this article even goes into, they've done it 100 times to China. They've done it to, the bad countries. But
North Korea,
they never messed with anything the U.S. did, and now they did. I thought that was just an interesting.
North Korea and Iran. Yeah,
we definitely engage in propaganda and information warfare a lot as a nation. I mean, I saw some of it myself that I can't even talk about, but it's literally ongoing and always has been, and it never stopped since whenever, right? It's just it's a tool in the machine that gets heavily utilized and made more efficient, and Facebook is a fantastic example of, you no longer have to fly over and drop leaflets in the streets anymore to spread propaganda in the streets. Now you can just target exactly, this demographic is most vulnerable to this messaging because of how they think. And I know that because I'm paying Facebook to target the right people for me.
And if you're an engineer working for them right now, you're a collaborator.
Yeah. So we do need to talk about the way it used to be. A little bit. Today's topic is Web 1.0, history and limitations. That was a great intro. Now that we're all fired up, let's see what kind of questions we've got, and see how we can probably continue to squeeze politics into it. But let's address the questions as well. All right. So all right. First question up, we have from Hyperion Frequency. So Hype Freak says, also has an awesome GIF, which is the proper way to pronounce that word. Question: exploring the idea of Web 1 from the threshold of Web 3, how do we ensure DIN doesn't become something that is easily phased out by the invention of a Web 4 and so on? Looking at the engineering of the past, how do we ensure the frame we build today can continue to be updated and built upon and keep itself relevant? What are some classic Web 1 applications or features that not only didn't die out, but instead have highlighted themselves to be crucial and essential to a thriving web existence?
RSS, perfect example.
RSS is great. Yeah, that was Schwartz made RSS, didn't he?
Aaron Schwartz. Yeah. He had himself killed himself as well.
Yeah, he was unfortunately put under a lot of pressure by the FBI to kill himself, and he did. So I that saddens me, and I feel strongly about his story. And anybody who's not familiar with Aaron Schwartz should look that up. Speaking of the evolution of the web, that was a person, that was a man who was very good and kind and wanted the best for people and wanted fairness in scientific publications and access to information that was paid for by tax dollars to be produced in the first place. He wanted that to be available without nickeling, diming people, and that was deemed to be bad and worthy of death. Unfortunately,
is that crazy?
He was one of the saints of our movement, I think.
Yes. Well, you think about it, that's literally, and you talk to any normal person who knows what the internet is. Someone who wants information to be more available. It's like Richard Stallman is the extreme version of that, right? But that is such a threat that they would
drive someone. Even if you take all conspiracy out of it and say, oh, he didn't really kill himself. There's a lot of theories or whatever. I think he killed himself. I think he committed suicide.
Right.
Personally, I do. But he was driven to that point, strategically driven to that point. I mean, the screws were turned. His life was being ruined by his government, by the USA.
To prove the point, the same 3-letter organization openly, and it's now declassified, tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself, right? And you think about historical implications of that amount of power. as Americans, we're just all okay with, because it doesn't affect me. I go to work, I go have fun on the weekend. I come home, it doesn't affect me. Is that crazy that they have so much power that they're going to take someone who we all agree, an historical figure, Aaron Swartz, may be too early for everyone to know his effect, right?
Potentially, yeah, it was pretty early, and
another great Web 1 example, email.
Right. Email. What else?
That's prior to Web 1.0, isn't it? Is Gopher included? Where does Web 1.0 start?
Actually, let's go to that first. Like in this first question, let's sort of define Web 1. I think that there's not really clear boundaries on where Web 1, begins and ends and all that stuff. Is sort of like an era that has fuzzy boundaries a little bit, I believe.
I would cite it as the privatization of ARPANET.
Really?
It's like you're talking about.
That for the beginning, you mean?
It was opened up to researchers outside of government.
So, from a technology point of view, what is it compared to what we have compared to Facebook? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
It's the basis. It's the protocols. Because you had Finger protocol, you had Gopher protocol, you had what's the in news protocol? I can't remember. You had the time protocol, right? NTP, which hits the Navy servers and all that. All of these things were the foundation for what was built on for the World Wide Web, right? For the which depends on where you park the internet, and then Web 2.0, and now Web 3.0.
PGP might also be a good starting point.
Okay, yeah. It's just, you think about it as protocol, and it's in some of them are, if you're a coder, it's interesting because you can say, I'm going to. The protocols allow you to make a network connection. Open a socket basically and send some characters over the socket, and the characters have to be in a certain arrangement so that the other side knows, this is a machine trying to talk to me. It'll have I have to, when I get something I understand, I have to give it back an ACK symbol, or actually ACK, and we just talk, right? So it sends me stuff, I send it stuff, and there
also couldn't exist before Tim Berners-Lee, right? Before he actually published the hypertext protocol.
Well, it could. See, that's the thing, though. In my opinion, at least, the RESTful side is what is the web. The visual web.
So Web 1.0 couldn't exist before him.
I think, but if we're talking about the web as Gopher too, then that predates.
That's true. Right? I mean, there's probably some gray area there, but Web 1 would not have happened without Berners-Lee's publication.
And his is an architectural. It's not even a protocol. It was an architectural description of what it was, and it laid out the fact that a client, your browser, can ask a server something, right? But the interesting philosophical part of it is that asking it is a payload. So I'm sending it. So I might not be asking it. I might just be sending it something. It will do some processing and then send it back. And it actually lays out a stateless way, which is important to blockchain even as well, that your data, the state of the reality between this interchange is moving between me and it and somewhere else, and then back to me. And it's a transfer of that state, building more and more detail. And that's how Facebook screws all of you people that use it. And they track everything you do, because you're essentially able to track that state. And they do stateful
with links to more pages. That's when it was Web 1.
Yeah, right.
And it became centralized when you very first had Google take dominance, really. That's when you can mark the beginning of Web 2 is like Google has the front page of the internet.
You didn't anymore have, if you guys knew, web crawler, and if you wanted something with
that was my go-to.
Maybe not as much, was Alta Vista.
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, yes.
I loved web crawler. I thought Ask Jeeves was stupid for whatever reason. Alta Vista was shiny.
Well, Ask Jeeves, I think you had to try to ask it in a let's see. How do I whatever?
Dogpile.
Meta search engines for a while. It would ask all the search engines.
Dogpile,
right?
I remember Dogpile. I know this is going to be y'all's big show, because this is like super tech stuff. We at least are Definitely going to be the outsiders.
You always say that, but it's not
Definitely.
true.
It is
You're-
true. Dude. Come
You're
on.
sharp as shit, dude. Come on.
I am the dumb guy here.
What was the
Y'all
first
know.
website? Just that, how does someone know? What was the first
I think
website?
from just like way broad, way on the outside. It seems to me that the evolution of web, it's always trying to. It's more like a battle. There's improvements and evolution, but it seems like here is the web, humanity. You can do all this, and then forces come in and, like Greg just said, centralize, do this, do that, and then every progression is like, here you can do this again. It's like always what the original thing was. Here you can do this, humanity,
It's shinier
and
now.
then forces come in to mess it up, and the next evolution is like, you can do it again.
Oh, but I think that might be wrong though, Sean, because I think what it is when you see that the new ones coming in, it is someone wresting control. They lost control of. That's what happened in early. It's like all of the press
It's like a
outlets.
battle
Wait
for
a minute.
control. To
Right.
give
You guys
control
remember
to someone.
GeoCities?
To give
You
control to
remember
people,
GeoCities?
and
Yeah, I
then
was in
someone
Silicon
tries
Valley
to take
on-
it back and centralize it, and then the next step is like, here, guys, control your information, control your data here. Oh, and then somebody comes in, and Facebook and they mess it up, and then it's like, okay, now here it is
Right.
again. Control your information, control your privacy, and then it's like a constant fight between giving humanity what it, this gift, and then forces coming in to try to,
Right.
control it and take it over.
Well,
I agree with
I
you,
like to-
Sean.
I like to
And
date
Greg
by
said
the-
something a minute ago. You mentioned GeoCities, and from the feel of the web, from the transition between Web 1 to Web 2. I was in the Silicon Valley section of GeoCities. I had a little website there, just because I thought that was the cool spot. Because my stepbrother, my older brother, who taught me initial computer stuff, was on there. So I'm like, obviously that's where I want to go, that neighborhood. Well, it went from like competition to control, right? Was one of the things that I noticed. And the other was that the internet used to be this place where you could explore like just magic, like all this realm, this other dimension of just competing ideas and people that have like even something as simple as like, these people have some really neat animations. Maybe I'll steal those and put them on my website. That's cool. And you had web rings where you had links, and here's some other stuff you might like, and that's how you found stuff. And it was very it wasn't interactive so much as it was like it was just interesting. There was interesting and variety, a lot of variety, and a lot of things you could discover. The discovery was there, and people wanted to discover. And then that sort of collapsed into 3 to 5 websites, and that's it. Everything went the way like, and that's the control part, right? Web 2 is like, the internet's gone, and everybody thinks that this app on your phone is the internet now, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and like if you guys want to have some fun, go to spacejam.com. That is the oldest living website from the Web 1 era. It's still up.
Good. I'm sure my lawn service website from whenever I was 10 is not still up on GeoCities,
Right.
but yeah.
You can also go to Endless Horse if you want to see some of the weirdness that used to prevail. Endless.horse.
So what are some of the things? That's a great comment to get us back on track with the question, because part of that was what from Web 1, what's still around? What do we still use? I don't use IRC as much as I used to, but there's things that definitely survived and still exist that we still use. RSS, obviously, email. Not the way we used to use email as much, but it's also been centralized and given over to people. Admittedly, running your own mail server is no fun, but what else has survived?
Even though if you email anybody from not one of the big 3 email providers, right, you're going to spam, right? Like there's
100%.
Google, there's Microsoft, there's Yahoo, and then there's spam.
That was an issue just for doing business. That was an issue with Lococino, my brother's band that I managed for a while here in Gainesville. Is it was an @lococino.com email address, Dave @, and so it would get shoved into the your spam box, and I'm trying to like talk to produce like people that are like event booking agents and things like that, And it's like, oh, you're not from like one of the big email providers, so you must be weird, and we're just going to throw that away, and you can't get through. So it does create more problems than it solves whenever you package things to be very, very accessible.
It's both bad engineering because they take an easy out. Google does some of the same things when certain search terms will bring up offensive info that they literally have decided they just won't let you search for that term, or they won't.
Right. Oh, I mean, the Web 1 died the last time you could search for Anarchist Cookbook and actually get a PDF file instead of yourself on a watch list.
That was the book that we would talk about when I was younger. It's like, oh, the Anarchist Cookbook, but it was like a book you could get at the library too. You just go give them the.
Man, it's so weird. We went from, hey, is this place where we can get that, to now the fact that you guys have said it twice is so bad. To now we're at a point where saying the word on the internet is going to cause this video to get
so that's those are the things that didn't make it from the Web 1.0 era.
Yeah. There was speaking of competition in Web 1, there was a rival, another Anarchist Cookbook style publication that it wasn't a book published. It was actually it was called the Big Book of Mischief, if I remember correctly, BBOM. It was just like how to be a shitty kid and fuck with your neighbors.
It taught you how to tiptoe appropriately to sneak around, right?
Yeah. But it was there's a lot of things, and maybe there's a shift in society and what we accept or whatever, but there's a lot of things like making knowledge illegal that just bothers me. The inability to study. I'm reading this book by Kerry Mullis right now, who invented the PCR test, and he's got a lot of interesting commentary in there. And part of that was, the brakes that were put on research by the U.S. government globally and influenced globally, where you're not even allowed until very recently, where there's been some licensing given out to study it again. There were all of these super promising results coming from the study of things like psilocybin and LSD and things like that. Very clinical, safe studies happening. And then all of a sudden, you're not allowed to even study it. You're not allowed to even research it. You're not allowed to read about it. You're not allowed to know anything about it.
Right.
And whether it's good or bad, I have less concern about. My concern is the inability to not be allowed to research something is absurd to me.
The FDA has gone after. So I have Dr. McDaniel comes on my show on sometimes Mondays. I had him on Wednesday. I had him on yesterday, and he's a brilliant man. And he literally has been financially destroyed for trying to teach people about nutrition. It is illegal to teach people about food or tell them that eating food could help your body.
Right.
They have financially destroyed him. And then what they did is he was like, oh, okay, well, I'll fight it and hire an attorney. And so then when they realized he would win, they would just move it to a different office, which would cause him to have to start a new case, so that it would cost him another, $5,000, $10,000 every time. And so that's how they ended up finally just like, it was incredible. Mafia tactics to destroy people.
There was a dental association out of the UK that published right before all of the Life Vest mandates, that published an article about how Life Vest didn't help you in a clinical setting in dental offices. And they took that down right before they started making everybody wear life vests and double life vests and all that, because of the drowning pandemic, all that that
well, look, we gotta move on to another question, but as we do,
I wanted to say something I thought of here. You're talking about getting rid of books.
Okay.
I think when it comes to knowledge, I think books are the cache of knowledge. I don't mean cash like but actual like paper money, like currency, because it's completely off the grid. It's nobody knows you have it. You have it's fungible.
I said this a year ago to a friend of mine. He thought I was crazy, but there is a it's the world is ripe for a resurgence of analog media again, because it's hard to.
Mark Hamill, we hit on the Mark Hamill put out a on Instagram. It's a list of banned books, and it's crazy the books that are on here. But he said this also works good as a good to read list.
No.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I would recommend everybody does if they're interested in helping preserve information and saving it from the memory hole, make local copies. Download, make local copies, save them. Use those things that scrape YouTube and download those videos. Put them back up elsewhere, but always keep a local copy. That's how we preserve this information.
True.
And I agree with that 100%. If you have the ability, go be a data hoarder and mirror things to see them change locally. And I don't want to abandon the last part of Hyperion Frequency's question, though, because it's very important to me, being somebody who really believes in what Den Social is building. How do we build something that's able to withstand the evolution of web, right? And I think that probably maybe I'll let Joe give an answer on that, but I think that part of it's going to have to do with hybrid solutions that can evolve as technology evolves.
I've got a quick one.
Obviously, one only needs to look as far as the Space Jam website. Obviously, is.
I got a quick one to throw in on that, Dave, before I let Joe go.
Sure.
Spread it to your friends. The more people, the more greater chance this has of surviving. We need Den to be an edifice, if we can make it that way. More people. Bring your friends.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Dave has looked quite a bit, Distant has looked quite a bit into the potentials to decentralize it, to run it on one of the decentralized blockchain networks. That's a huge ideal that would fit into the vision. There's also potentials to do federations. The whole design of the layer itself, I think it's even in a white paper, specifically mentioned that if for certain reasons that layer didn't seem to fit with the rest of the layers, it could, or let's say it couldn't trust however Den is hosted, because maybe it's a dissident group in Hong Kong or something else, that they could literally host their own wherever if they would see fit. There would probably be something with the economy that might not be plugged in, though, right? If it's not fully public, like what we do with private layers, where the energy still works, but if you make a post that goes viral on a private layer, you get nothing, right? It's not in the economy, so
which can be fine if that's not what's most important to you,
right.
The kind of thing. And there are some, the federalization thing is interesting because there are some examples of that work very well. I think. I don't know if Diaspora does that. I feel like they do, but I'm pretty sure Mastodon operates that way with their network
without a blockchain. But it's
without a blockchain. Yeah. Neither of those are blockchain solutions at all. But they've demonstrated that sort of thing where you help to decentralize it. That kind of thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dave.
Cool. All right. I just wanted to make sure we hit that. So.
And
bring those ideas.
I don't know if we answered the primary question very well, which I think the main thing still existing from Web 1 are the protocols. HTTP, TCP, even some of the ones that aren't used that much, but those things still exist, and none of the rest of this would be possible without them.
Yep. That and the Space Jam website.
Yes. Which is the next question? Next question is...
All right. So Juicy J out of New York, I believe, if I'm not... wrong about that. Sorry if I'm doxing you, but one of our denizens that has been involved recently, and I appreciate your post in the beer layer, good sir. Thank you. Has a question. And the question is, are there any live pages from the days of Web 1? We've talked about Space Jam. Is the one where is the $1 million ad page still up where they were selling it per pixel?
I don't know.
There's one where like people were buying pixels on a website because when you don't understand a piece of technology like blockchain or like the internet when it came out, there's a lot of assumptions that are made by people who listen to their friends, who listen to their other friends, who watch the TV, who whatever, right? And so you get this game of telephone that ends in, "Hey, yeah, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
Hey, if I put a sign up on this web page, it's on the internet. Anybody could see it. Oh, it's amazing. You never know who's going to come see it." They don't understand that you have to like seek out this page to find it. And if you do, you're going to be like, "Oh, that's funny. Bye."
Which one jumps out to you guys the most? I think Pixeloodle.
Oh, I don't know. Rent Clicks is because it's got white space among all the clutter and color noise and stuff. There's Absinthe, which is in green, But this was like, yeah, you just sell ads and they squish them onto a web page, and that's people paid for that.
I just looked it up just real quick, and it's probably horrible. I mean, it's a spammy site with the 15, but CNN's OJ trial coverage,
yeah,
it's still up.
Is it?
I was just like,
that is
Bob
fantastic.
Dole Kemp.
Holy crap!
Wow. That's funny. And
forgot
it has
Bob
Space Jam
Dole.
on here, right? So
I hope none of my old websites are still up there from whenever I was learning.
It was about strawberry Pop-Tarts. Scroll back down for a second.
Oh, strawberry Pop-Tarts. Was it an ad? No?
I don't know. Keep
San
going.
Francisco
We're almost there.
Acme.
Strawberry Pop-Tart
Blow
torches.
Okay.
Are they just torching them to show what it looks like?
And inexpensive source.
Oh, it's a paper. Okay.
You guys, this is going to get banned just from.
I was going to say there was like a pedo
people who buy
symbol.
Pop-Tarts are
on
going to be
there.
on a list.
Oh, neat.
Just so you know, don't buy strawberry Pop-Tarts if you don't want to be on that list, I guess. Right?
Yeah, and they're not flamethrowers. They're for roofing tar, and they sell them at Home Depot.
Oh, exactly.
That's what
In no way
when Elon.
weaponizable.
I don't know if you remember, Elon was giving out flamethrowers to people that like bought into the Boring Company or a hat or both or something.
They were not a
And
flamethrower, actually.
He took roofing tar flamethrowers, torches, and like made them they look like a cool gun now. And so it just has like, 6 to 12 inches of a flame coming out of the front that will burn something, but it's not like a flamethrower. It just looks cool.
Right. Yeah, flamethrowers haven't been in active use since Vietnam War, right?
Not that I know of.
I don't
know.
Did you
Those
see
some scary
those
things.
helicopters that were setting some fires in was that California?
No, I didn't see that.
No, I didn't.
I did see
I'll
a
send you a
footage. Boat. There's one where a drone has Roman candles shooting at some kids in the street, which was hilarious.
really?
And then there was another one that had a flamethrower on it. It was crazy.
There's
We used
one
to do that with Roman candles at each
once
other.
upon a time in Hollywood.
with a bus.
So, not a real example, but Amazon Dating actually is kind of a Web 1 style website. There are tons. If you look up weird websites, you will find tons and tons of Web 1 style content where it's just like somebody puts up a web
I'm
page.
not going to
and
search
it's
weird.
if you're
websites
looking
because I'm
for-
scared of what'll come up.
If you're looking for writing instruments and you go to Penn Island, you have to just be careful. Anyway, that was a joke for Sean.
And then https://endless.horse is like in the spirit of Web 1. And is literally it is literally just a ASCII graphic representation of a horse that if you scroll down, its legs never end.
So why didn't they stick around? Right. The question's about what did stick around and what is still up. Why didn't?
I think most of them were the equivalent of the meme coins of today. If we come back in 15, 20 years, we're going to talk. It's like they used to have this coin called yams. It actually went up like crazy. Yams. Yeah, who could believe it? Right.
Yeah. Right. Everybody.
those idiots. What were
that's kind of what I was getting at with
I know
the
the developer behind that, and that was actually a really funny project because they tried their hardest to say like, please don't use this.
Well,
and it didn't work.
It's a joke. It's purposely a joke, and yet they come after Dragon Chain. Anyway, I'm gonna.
Right.
I will leave it
Yams
there.
probably shouldn't have made it past the drawing board.
Fuck on.
All right. So thank you, Juicy J. Jacob Wayne has the next question. Did blogging, chat rooms, and forums pave the way for social media as Web 1 transitioned into Web 2?
Where on the boundary is AOL and CompuServe?
So AOL Gold is still a thing.
If you look at CompuServe, that was pre-internet, right? That was a standalone dial-in network.
It's like a very advanced BBS or big BBS.
Right, exactly. And bulletin board services today that you can access over the web are great examples of Web 1 surviving.
Yeah.
But
good point.
But I mean, that's ultimately like even what 4chan was based on, right? It was bulletin boards. But if you look at like chat rooms and AIM and those things, they were originally federated. They were originally federated systems, and when they centralized around stuff like Facebook Messenger, that's when you saw that part of Web 1 die away.
Yeah.
Blogging and chat rooms and forums and stuff, people definitely used to read a lot more. Like it was normal to read or to want to read stuff. I have to wonder how much like the ease of streaming video has gotten in the way of the thriving like LiveJournal or chat rooms for your local town where you'd hop in, even if it was AOL chat room or something like that. You got social on the internet for the first time in chat rooms. I remember I moved to Ohio and I was like, I don't know anybody here. And I found like an AOL chat room for my city and was like, hey, who lives here?
Yep.
I think
and the gaming
way though, like BBSs were all local stuff. It was
very.
And my way of thinking changed when it was with AIM when it first started, and I was able to talk to someone in Alaska, and I was like, "Oh, Alaska, that's cool," and it was like real time,
without paying long distance.
Yeah,
how much of that was how much of gaming and I'm thinking of where like my ex, we'd have to like leave a restaurant because he had a gaming tournament with someone in Germany or someone
Right.
on the other side of the world. How much of gaming and being able to engage that way do you think was
Command and Conquer Red Alert, man? I played that. Did you guys play that online?
Command and Conquer.
I would think
Warcraft, all that.
They
had they still have it. The what's it called? Their
Halo.
Their Battle Network.
Battle.net.
Battle.net. Yeah.
Battle. So it was, but Lisa brings up a really good point. I think, and now we're opening a whole new can of worms because that was the first time that it's in video game developers or companies could directly interact with their customers without a third party, without an ad agency or anything. They could, like, I remember AOL had this great thing,
shareware,
where it was demos. You could go get like the first level of a game.
Yeah.
And, these game companies would just put them out. First three, they would just make an old game free.
Shareware was great. You could try it out before you bought it.
Yeah. And that was the first, and then of course the third parties came in and messed everything up. But that was this connection with the gaming company and their customers that was like never before seen, and that I think made gaming explode because you're already on a computer, obviously, and then it's like, hey, you can play a game on this. Someone who didn't play games, here's a free game.
There's a chat box.
Levels of this,
and now you can talk to people and have affairs.
Yeah, and the interactive thing and the multiplayer thing made it really social. It made it really.
Can I say, because back in the Web 1 era, you had websites, right? They were very, very immature, very early, not very shiny, most of them not well designed. And you had either email or things like news groups. So if you were interested in a certain topic, and I would say that was the first exposure I had to arguing about it. I was in a band at the time, right? And I was a nerd. And
the internet for bands was great.
Yeah, and back then it's a huge. I mean, it is a radical disappointment what we see right now, because at the time it was obvious to me as an engineer and as a human being that an independent band could all of a sudden. I mean, we had a regional band. We would play around the Midwest.
Oh yeah,
off I-70, and yet because we had a website that was better than all of the major label bands, and we got on the lists because we had tour dates, we had show dates, we had pictures, we had merch, we had samples of the music, which at the time we could
unheard of.
Like a nice polished
didn't even exist.
calling card.
I had to what do you call it? Essentially remove resolution from the file to make it small enough to make it downloadable. And we had I think probably the funniest and coolest hack to date to get views or to get listens to our music. It was absurd. It was hilarious. Some other day when we're on Sean's show or something, maybe I'll tell you about that.
Y'all remember Real Player 7?
But here's the thing. Yeah, it predated Real Player, right? And I knew one of the VPs from there at Disney, right? That's in Seattle. But one way or another, we got exposure. We got letters from people in the Far East. We got snail mail, real letters from multiple places in the what was behind the Iron Curtain. This was after the Cold War was over. But those people were they were hungry for music, and they would play our music over there at certain shows and stuff. But they would, write to ask if we could send them more tapes or whatever else. And my thought is, okay, as soon as distribution is fixed, where I don't have to figure out how to manufacture cassette tapes or CDs to mail them to someone, as soon as I can actually send the file, that's when everything will change, because a band no longer would need a distribution. They would no longer need a label. They would be able to make their own money. And yet somehow that didn't happen. Is crazy to me. I mean, there was stuff like Bandcamp and CD Baby and a couple of those things that came out that were brilliant for that, but it's just, I think they've been pretty pushed down
to an extent. That does still happen today. I remember some friends of mine maybe still have a band that locally they weren't getting a lot of traction, but there were phenomenal music, prog rock. They were called Just Neighbors, and they've got fantastic music, but they just weren't in the region. They just weren't really getting a lot of traction. And until one day I was talking to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're about to go take a tour to Japan," because they, over the internet. I think this was over Reddit. They had gotten exposure over Reddit at this point, but they were like, "Yeah, they love us over there. It's fantastic," or in Germany or something like that. So all of a sudden you can access markets that do like what you do, even if your neighbors don't.
It's another thing that I think the internet did in the beginning, just like with video games. With music, it allowed you to connect without the third party to bands that you liked, which you would never be able to see. Like Manowar, perfect example. Love Manowar, huge in Europe, huge on the East Coast. They won't tour it. They'll never come to Texas. They'll never come out here because they're not big. They
can't afford to get there.
In Japan. So, but like I remember, I was able to go and buy a Manowar shirt, and there's no way I would have to literally go to Jersey.
Yeah.
And then go see them.
Yeah, there's
buy their merch.
There's a particular black metal band that all the members live in Texas. One of our former members plays for them, and they won't play anywhere in the U.S. because they nobody would come. But they go and they play to full stadiums in South America and in Europe. Wow. Because it's big there, and it's just totally different.
Prog rock and black metal, man. Those are not phenomenal. My first act was a prog rock band. Yeah, we literally we played half the time to empty rooms. We played sometimes to halfway empty back rooms at bowling alleys. We played the Gaslight, a little teeny tiny place hole in the wall from where I'm from originally.
And these are the groups that there was a question about Den earlier, and there's I think the question that we're on right now is talking about blogging and about whatever else is on the question. But these are local bands do work. They're willing to work and create form communities. And I'll plug Den real quick and just say that it's a perfect place to have a fan club, because then you can interact with your listeners, with your fan base in a way that gives them.
You imagine a DAO-based band?
Holy power!
Smokes.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about starting a lair for our happy hour roadshow, and I talked to you about it. I'm curious if I should do it like a business, where I'm in control. Or should I do it like a DAO thing where I just try to get everybody that watches the happy hour show to start an account and come over and vote us into a lair?
Well, I've done it both ways.
What
And
would be
Wait, can
it's
I
an
tell you the
interesting
middle way?
question because let me just finish this real quick.
Sorry.
Was that like approaching what we're doing on Den and what a lot of Web3 is doing? We haven't even gotten into talk about Web3 at all today, I think. But well, it's not the topic, I guess. But what we're doing in Web3 today, to me, conceptually, feels a lot like what we were doing with Web 1, which is like starting over and figuring out, oh, we have this new ability to organize in a different way and communicate with each other. And a lot of the answers to questions right now are, I don't know, however you want to build it is how we do it, because there's nothing there yet.
So much of it this time is about, one thing that Web 1 did wrong, that we lost Web 1 for, was the fact that we didn't build in centralization resistance because we didn't know we needed to worry about it.
Right. Because that's supposed to be on the internet itself. That's why the internet's there. Right,
exactly. So Web 3 in a way is a reaction to Web 2 that is really more of the continuation of Web 1, but Web 1 with defenses built in for that decentralization.
And Lisa, we should get together and talk about that.
Because I would love to have a strategy for that.
The third way would be to come in as a business, but put 0 or 1 lot in, or 1 lore, and then to grow it as you grow, because then those people will have a reason to come in, and then they'll start getting a piece of it, and then they all
benefit from it.
They all benefit, but even more importantly, in my opinion, it's like more importantly than getting
and they have the say in it.
We can all kind of say, you know what, I like this topic, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, I love that.
That's the most successful that I've seen. World Blockchain is set up that way to where it's sort of the supply of ownership tokens and governance tokens grows each episode with whoever participates. That does two interesting things. One is it gives the participants some ownership of the show itself and the ability to interact in a way that's meaningful and accountable. And two, it solves a problem that I didn't realize was a problem until we started solving it, which is that the whale effect, right? Where if you have people early on who are rewarded for coming into something that doesn't exist yet and helping to build it, and then later on those people go away, but they still have all these governance tokens, right? They're not helping anymore. They used to, and that's great. Fantastic. Thanks for the help. We need that. And we need to incentivize that by paying well for people that want to do work. But then there's a lot of unfairness that can come, not always, later with people that stopped participating, but still hold this large share of weight in a layer or something. So if you issue tokens for participation as you go along, what you're doing is you're actually inflating the whales out of voting power unless they continue to participate and also get new tokens awarded to them. Exactly. Right. So it's sort of it doesn't solve necessarily, but it mitigates this stagnant whale problem that can happen in DAOs and stuff like that.
Well, and running right through the heart of this is a theme, guys. Like, so much of this has to do with, in Web 1, you had to go out and find what you wanted. It wasn't shown to you. It wasn't given to you. It wasn't served up to you on a silver platter. You had to go look for what you wanted. And in the looking, it created an incentive for people to create. And I think so much of it is on each of us to go out and look for what we want on the web, and to see that if it's not there, we build it. Like that ultimately is what it comes back to is, are we going to passively consume the internet, or are we going to create the internet? And
very
that
interesting
to me is what it really comes down to.
Because we were talking about Dogpile. I remember like in the beginning times, I thought Google was cool because people don't even know what it means. It's like a giant number because you could find so much. I remember my ex-wife, she's Dogpile because she was a whore, but she said something about Google. I was like, oh, that's cool. Google is like I think the biggest number you can have, and so I thought that was neat. But we did have to go and search, and that was part of the fun. It was going out and literally just searching and finding neat stuff. But now that even has been co-opted, where if you and the term Google something, it means looking up. It's like that word has been put into the zeitgeist as looking something up. But your results are so controlled,
manipulated. Yeah,
where you have to go through pages and pages, and they can just omit it. It can just not be there.
Right. If Wikipedia takes down the page you created,
no results
what's the next
found.
Step? Give up or create your own Wikipedia. Right.
That is a good point for Web 1.0 even is a dictionary, and the fact that we now see such control that 90% of all of the online dictionaries change the definitions of words in sync.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and obviously coordinated. Like same with
Urban
the social media
Dictionary,
networks
though,
and stuff like that.
Multiple definitions, and people vote the definitions they prefer up.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing gets wiped
exactly.
off.
It should be a consensus-based. We should start a blockchain-based dictionary. I tried, by the way, I will tell you all, I did my best to try to get Larry Sanger to put a blockchain behind his and put behavior systems, but he was dead set after having seen how Wikipedia was destroyed, corruption on the inside, and seeing how
I was just going to say that would have been perfect for him, but
and seeing how he's the founder, one of the founders of Wikipedia. So and seeing how he went to a different group after it, and he actually, before I ever met him, I responded to me on Twitter when I mentioned you guys should be doing this with a blockchain with incentives, and he pointed to that, and apparently it failed because of whale effect. They had a huge problem. Obviously it would with Wikipedia. I'm going to be a whale. I'm going to change the truth. But with the behavior system, you don't have that same problem. At least you have more tools, right? You still have. Yeah.
Well, in this way, inflationary economics actually kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Yes. Also gave birth to the Urban Dictionary, which
that's what I was thinking.
That's one of my big accomplishments. I created a word in the Urban
which
Dictionary.
one? Do you want to tell us?
Pea pickle. Look up
pea pickle. How's it spelled?
I have to check it out.
Yeah, Urban Dictionary pea pickle. Go vote it up.
That is a very well one.
I've heard of pea picking.
How's it spelled?
Pea pickle. I've created a word for a penis.
Is it 2 E's?
Oh. No, just regular pea. Oh yeah, P-E-E, pea pickle.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one.
I thought it was.
Anybody who wants to try to redefine that word to something new, you're just going to have to make a parallel definition. Someone will have to vote it up.
What's the definition? I think it's literally like a penis.
Yeah. It's just another word for it.
Guys, I don't see it.
Urban Dictionary on chain with behavior systems is a really good idea.
No,
yes.
It does not show. Sorry, we could not find that. There are no definitions for this word.
They're curating now. Now we definitely need a Web3.
Now I'm going to go create it on Urban Dictionary, and you guys can vote for mine, and then I'll say I made it, even though Sean really made it, and we'll never know.
A blockchain, I think, Sean.
It comes down. Nope, here it is. If you put a space between it.
Oh,
it's pea pickle.
A penis. His pants fell down and everyone saw. It's Pea Pickle by Satoshi Shon.
August
4th, 2020.
Very nice.
Okay,
very nice.
I'm gonna vote it up.
Hey, you learn something new every day, don't you?
You're a legend.
It has no downvotes. That's a good.
Well, look, we've got time for another question. Let's see what Hodl Signal has to say. So hodlsignal.io is a website, and they have an account on Den, and they have asked, what did we get right and what did we get wrong with Web 1? For example, could we have prevented the corporate takeover of the internet so that, quote, freedom of speech and access to information would have been the norm and not require workarounds and hacks and around firewalls and etc.
Right.
An example given is the CCP firewall. An example I would give is paywalls on tax-funded publications. Stuff like that.
Can I say something? I think you guys probably have more nuanced answers in this, but almost obviously we can, because you can still hit a freaking static web page. You don't have to go through a funnel of Facebook. You don't have to go through Google. Okay, it's less convenient, and frankly, that's probably a civics education question. Because
that's what I was going to say. There is an education issue.
Public should have known. I'm just not going to put. I'm going to wait a minute. I'll read the terms. It's like, wait, you own these photos of my kids and pets? I have to wait a minute.
Or even accessing. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're exactly right, because there's so many things that come down to education, and this is one of them. And I do a lot of troubleshooting with people that have, to me, simple questions, but they can't figure out why something's not working. And I'll say something that to me is like, no, you just put in this URL. Go to your web go to the thing at the line at the top where you typically use to search for stuff, but just put .com after this word and it'll just go there, right? And they won't understand, or they'll go to google.com and then they'll go to Google search thing and then they'll search for it. And so it's like always accessing through a window instead of just going there. You know, you can do the same amount of work and get directly there and bypass everything, or you can just Google it, I guess. I don't know.
The really cool part of Web 1, like Joe said, it's less convenient, but I think you had so much more feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
When you did it and you like, you know what I mean? Just the basic. We talked about with MySpace, like building your page. You're like, oh, I'm a hacker. I put this picture over here, and I put this little GIF over here.
Right, and you learned something along the way, didn't you?
Yeah.
You picked up a skill that maybe it's useless, but it's informative, right? On how shit works.
Yep. Typically, people would literally look up a WW3C or whatever it is. I can't even remember article to find. Well, how do I make this tag? What are the options for this tag?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is simple stuff like that. So
Three things.
Back in my day, we just had a book
guys.
on the shelf called DOS for Dummies, and you'd pick
Open
it up
source.
and you're like, what was this?
Number
Command.
one.
Yeah.
If you don't open source your solutions and then document them so that people can run them,
and
nobody can build. Like nobody can repeat something they thought was cool without having somebody else serve it up to them. Number two, right, is knowing that you actually had to fucking fight for it. We didn't know we had to fight for it. So we watched it get monetized, and that leads to number 3. Monetize it your own way. Don't let anything you have be monetized by somebody showing up. You did not win the who's the next American all-star when somebody with big shows up and tries to hand you money. You've been handed an opportunity to centralize. Make sure that you go into those things. If you try to grow up big and you take money, you take their terms unless you dictate them. So dictate your terms if you create something great. Yeah, to me, those are the 3 things.
Yes.
Oh, you mean like the Bitcoin Defense Fund isn't really looking out for people with open source coding?
They are not.
Oh,
they are not.
wow.
All controlled, right?
Interesting.
So I'm going to bring this up, and I don't know where Stallman fits in the world of Web.0. It depends on people's opinions. He is a crazy guy. He is super interesting, brilliant, crazy guy. Do you guys know who he is?
I'm familiar. Yeah,
I love him.
Okay, so this guy.
I have that tattoo, by the way. The thing on his sign. I have a tattoo of that.
The chaos symbol.
Yeah, chaos star.
I love it.
My first tattoo.
It was like, of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these. Richard M. Stallman was right again. He said so many things that were extreme that now are absolutely true about the tech. And by the way, I bought this sticker from him. So he showed up at a local university, and we heard last minute, went and saw him, and I had to go to the ATM and get some cash, and I bought some merch and stuff. He's crazy, right? I mean, but I'm
a card carrying Free Software Foundation GNU Linux guy.
He created GNU, and it's so funny. It's a very nerdy thing. It's GNU's not Unix, but it's a
recursive
acronym because GNU not Unix is so. And if you ever say something about that runs Linux, right? It's GNU Linux, right? Because he basically provides everything that Linux needs other than the kernel to do what it does. It's essentially Unix, which is open source, because he was a radical believer that software as speech should be free to do anything it wants, that people could use software for whatever they want. And he's a radical. But he was one of, you could talk about Kernighan or Ritchie, you could talk about some of the guys that did some of the early compute stuff, but this guy as a whole is probably the greatest contributor to what we have right now. You wouldn't have half the websites; they would all be running Windows, or if Jobs had his way, they'd be running some form of OS 10 that cost you $310 million to run a month or something. But one way or another, this is the reason that I got into what I started getting into, because it's so exciting and it's so frankly powerful. Open source is unimaginably powerful. And that is why, literally, were it to keep its convictions, Bitcoin itself and generally blockchain as a whole, applying open source principles with a monetary built in, that you essentially have, it might not always be monetary, it might not be a currency, but you have something that is scarce and hard to get, and therefore might have some value depending upon how it's used. That is blockchain, and
or at least it allows it to be gamified and then
open source and open protocols.
Yeah, and that's my opinion. That's my whole thesis. I've talked several times about this. The most important thing about what blockchain is demonstrated directly by Bitcoin. That it didn't require someone who was born to do it, like Steve Jobs, to promote it, who had to have his wingman have an engineer, Wozniak, right? It didn't require
well, that was hardware. That was even
right. Well, but it's
that was even harder to decentralize, but they could have.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. How do you say this? With startups, it broke the model. Bitcoin basically said, you don't have to do that. The software does it. The software builds in its own promotion. It is what, like say Rand would say is the what do you call it? The self-moving man. It's the thing that causes the move. Is the software. It's not a person that you have to rely on. And it's an interesting thing because I mean that's what we built Dragon Chain entire. That's the whole reason I got into blockchain. Other than it's like, oh, I could have just bought some Bitcoin.
Greg said something. It was really profound. We had to fight for it, and I think we didn't because we didn't know how to. Well, it's very weird because I remember in the beginnings when government was trying to take over, it was funny because it was this new thing that like they didn't understand and
they failed.
You could do anything on it because it didn't exist before, so the laws didn't. They didn't apply to it. Like I remember in insurance, if we faxed applications, like it was they tried to say it was wire fraud, or if you did something illegal with faxing, the powers that be would try to get you for wire, but it wouldn't, but because it went over a phone line, and then before it was like they would get you for something with the mail. So it was this, but it was funny. I remember that, but then we didn't know how to fight because regular people, we all got scammed. Like why we're in the position that we're in now is because way back when the country was completely united against bankers and against big banks because they, destroyed everything. We had the Depression. Bankers are evil, banks are evil. So what they did was they put out a big advertisement campaign, literally just reverse psychology. It's like, oh, we hate this bill, don't vote for this bill, we don't like it, and then everybody's like, we're going to vote that bill, and it worked. It completely worked. It gave them the power they wanted. And this, I remember when all these things were talking about, like cable companies and the internet, and you didn't know because both sides, it sounded, right. It's like, hey, we need to do this to protect this, do this. And it's like, well, this is free speech. And we got to do it. Literally, you had no idea who was right.
Yeah, it's manipulation because people don't have.
You know what it comes down to, too, is like the belief in regular people. Like regular people are too dumb to want to do this if it's not placed in a point and click manner that is easy to understand. That's bullshit. That is a lie that has been fed to you to believe that everybody around you is too stupid to fight for this unless you serve it out to them on a platter. That is the Web 2 mindset. And we can't live with that anymore. We have to have regular people believe in themselves. And we have to believe in regular people in order to do it. Like, I think that's ultimately at the very bottom of this is what it is. It's a belief in regular people to change their own circumstances.
Also, Huddle Signal's really awesome. It's a good question, and I appreciate it. And hey, Phil.
Absolutely, yeah. Chat. And speaking of Web 1 websites that are still around and still active, and things like GNU and Stallman and things like that, I haven't thought of or looked at this website since probably 2014 when I was in DC. But I'm going to bring up, if it's here, there we go, the GNU herd kernel. This web page is probably still served up from a system with the herd kernel. It sort of works for stuff. You get it's very GNU. It's very like you're gonna have to take some time to figure it out and configure it to get it to work. But I think it's neat. Like it's still going. Apparently there were some updates in 2021 I didn't know about, so I'll have to go read about that. I just wanted to bring that up because it reminded me, and it's been around since however long ago.
Yeah. Wow.
So cool. Well, let's end it there, I believe, because if we don't, I'll have to go back and edit it down to 2 hours to be able to replay it again in the future. I don't want to have to do that again. Let me find I'm sorry. Somebody talk about something for a second. I'm sorry.
Well, you guys were talking about fighting and that it was being taken away from you. I was PayPal just gave the one of the 3-letter agencies that starts with the I and ends with the S a list.
The Immigration and Naturalization Service? Oh no. I'm teasing.
Pirates say R.
They're pirates. Yeah.
All right. I found my notes. Let's wrap it up. And unless anybody has something to say before we do our round, I'll give everybody a moment to talk about whatever they want on the way out. But before we do that, does anybody have something that's just been in the back of their mind that they're like, as soon as I get a chance to say it, I'm gonna say that? Because we got just enough time to do that first, if you want. Anybody? All right, great. So thank you to all of our hosts. This is always an important conversation to me. I get a lot out of it. I hope you do too. And I hope that everyone who's watching or listening gets something out of it. If not, swing by the World Blockchain Roundtable layer and start suggesting questions and topics, and then you will get ownership and you will get voting rights, and you'll be able to direct the show however you want. So thank you to our hosts. And where can people follow you, and are there any updates? I'm going to start with Lisa on this. What can you tell us about what's going on your end of the internet?
So you can find me on Den's Social at Lisa Mighty Davis. I'm trying to be over there as much as I can. I have some ownership in some of the other layers I've been trying to post in, and enjoying that. And there's really good community over there. So that's been really fun. I'm on Twitter at Lisa Mighty Davis, and then on YouTube, like Coin Lisa. And I have a daily show, weekday show, and Sean's on with me on Tuesdays, and sometimes he'll jump in on other days and help me out. I have a great conversation with him. So I can.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaking of Sean, let's hear from you for a moment. What's going on with Sean?
For a moment. Just put up a second half of a video I did on Siege Worlds with Jeff McCabe and what they're doing with that. Cool. It was a 2-part interview because it was an hour and 45 minutes. First part was about the comics from Lightning Works, and the second part's about the MMO, which is really cool, and you can play it for free now. I just put up someone started talking about this interstate passport like in the past couple weeks, with certain states talking about going to extreme measures, and they had brought this up before during the gingivitis outbreak. I posted it in the private chat. I don't know if you want to share it, Dave, but it was this video I made like a year and a half ago or something. But it was I sent it to you guys, and I put it in the Telegram. But it's just a funny video if you want to play it. And check me out on YouTube and Twitters and all that. Still trying to get the co-founder of CultDAO to talk to them. I think I have another interview coming up this week. That's about it.
Yeah, cool. See if they can come on here, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I'll go check that out, Sean. That sounds interesting. I like a lot of the stuff that Jeff McCabe's doing, and I have at least looked over Siege Worlds in the past, so it'll be good to get an update on where that is. So thank you for that. Greg from Rivet, let's talk to you for a moment. What's going on with Rivet or with anything else that you're involved with?
Rivet is super excited to be working with Color Museum. our newest Built with Rivet partners. These guys have a really neat thing where they're competing with OpenSea by auctioning off or selling off colors that you don't own the color. You own the color on their site, so don't be confused because they got smeared in the media for trying to sell color as a primitive. They just sold a primitive to everybody who uses their site. If someone buys an NFT that has that color in it, you get a chunk of the fees. That's pretty fucking cool. So go check them out. And then I guess the only other thing that I would say is your mission this week is to go find something on the internet that you did not get led to. Find something new. And if it doesn't exist, create it. That's my mission for you this week.
That's a fantastic mission too. Joe Dragon, what's going on with your world, and what can you tell us about where to follow you and keep up with all of that?
Okay. Probably the best place to follow would be on Den, because that's where anything of any significance will be with all of what's going on, and that would be to following Dragon Chain and all the Dragon Chain related things, and me. But essentially, we just got the SEC, whatever you call it, complaint, and we're looking through what it is, and we've already responded to a couple of outlets that asked. We had one outlet that is a known, I don't know if you call him a troll, but he hates us. He's hated us for a long time, and it's obvious he hates us. We have a response to that up there, and some of the publications were kind enough to let us respond. Others didn't even reach out. It's kind of weird. What's the press like these days? And
I got to
there's a theme to that. There's certain people that they are interested in hearing from, and certain people that they aren't.
So we're dealing with that, and it's a long haul, but it is a holy war, and it's a battle to the last man. And we have a lot in our arsenal, because the truth can hurt bad guys. So I don't know. That's probably the biggest part of it. Open source money is, I think, going to be released tomorrow. Apparently it's announced that, but I'm trying to see if they can't delay it so we can do it a little better. But so if it moves, don't be upset. It's because we're trying to make sure we get a little better presentation of it. But if not, if we have time, I'm hoping it will be live streamed tomorrow at some point, and then available generally on YouTube and Odyssey library, so that anyone can watch it, right? And we've been trying to get that for a while, and have to deal with a lot of distribution politics and stuff, right? So anyway, that'll be a really good thing to kind of get the story out there. Anyway, you guys can help. If you said this on the other show, if you guys see something that doesn't add up, reach out to us, because there's so many details in this, and we've found so many that are either out of context or have wrong facts or general mistakes. It is useful for us to know that, and we're fighting against the greatest power on earth, and literally unlimited funds. And all we have is truth and a nerd on our side. So should be enough, though.
Here's to the waning of the evil empire, man.
Yes. It's on its way.
Thank you, Joe. And absolutely, I'll second that. Follow Joe, and follow Dragon Chain, and follow what's going on. Speaking of Den, I'm Dave. You can find me on Den and around the internet at Distant, written in Leet speak with the number 7 there in the middle, back when that used to be cool. But you can find me on Den Social with that handle. You can find me on Twitter with that handle. You can reach me with that session ID. I registered the Oxen name service for Distant. So you can, instead of a confusing bunch of garbled numbers, you can just put in Distant in your session app, and you can reach me there. Phone call even with that. You can just call Distant. It's pretty neat. IRC, even though I ain't been there in a while, that's me typically everywhere. Telegram. So I have a show called Coffee with Den that just launched its own layer on Den Social, and we went live on Odyssey for the first time yesterday, which was, I think my system clock screwed it up. It thought we were live for 5.5 hours, and then it turned the stream off or something. But I'll fix that. Learning experience there. But all about trying out all the things, right? So if you want to follow me, I'll try out all the things and I'll talk about all the things that I try out. And then maybe you'll be interested in some of those. Thanks again to all the hosts. The theme for next week is going to be blockchain fundamentals. I love this trend of like Web 1, blockchain fundamentals. Let's get back to basics and learn about like why it's important. So blockchain fundamentals next week. Share this episode. The more you share, the more lot our hosts and topic contributors will get. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell if you're on YouTube. Joe,
anywhere bells are at.
I had an idea. Something, and sorry, we're almost out of time, but I'll try to get it quick. Two things. An Audible, if something massive happens, I think the DAO needs to vote on, yes, all of us on the show can vote and change the subject for that, and maybe it pushes the subjects out if that's something who knows, if an emergency.
Cool idea.
And then the second is current events and maybe it would be we have a reply to the roundtable post where people can reply to that. I don't know. I don't make it too complicated.
Yep.
But
maybe we just have a current events show once a month.
Oh, yeah.
I like the idea of getting suggestions on what current events to talk about. Yeah. That's good too. Yeah. Just to get a launching point, a jumping off point. Yep. Cool.
So,
all right.
Did we shout out to Deaton for
yes,
thanks for the tweet?
Yeah, thanks for the tweet. He is one of the he might not be yet a saint, but he's at least one of the angels that's the heroes that's working this thing, because he and his community are pulling out stuff that we would have never had the resources to get to, and that stuff is going to be massively important for Dragon Chain, at least. So anyway, yeah, thanks, Lisa. Yeah,
absolutely. To everybody else, man, stay free.
Stay free. All right. See everyone next week for blockchain fundamentals. Thanks again. Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.